Hello.
Hello,
So
Jane.
these are the ladies from World Decanted. Would you like to introduce yourselves?
Hello, I'm Lisa.
And I'm Linda. And together we are Wool Decanted.
So Lisa and Linda, we met through Raw Wool, really, didn't we? At Yarndale, I think, was the first time that I met up with you guys, and was totally blown away with your yarn.
Oh, thank you.
Tell us a little bit about how Wool Decanted started.
Well, it was during COVID, I think 2020.
Yes.
We were looking to start, I had retired from corporate life, and we were looking to start a small business. And I used to have a little hobby business of knitting dog jumpers for our previous dog on the knitting machine. And we thought, well, let's do that. And then we thought, what would make it unique? And we thought, well, nobody does them in British wool. Why don't we do them in British wool? And then we said, why don't we make our own wool? And so that was great.
That was quite a leap.
It was quite a leap, yeah. And we had no idea, we had absolutely no idea what we were letting ourselves in for. But we were fortunate enough to make contact with a real wool guru, Sue Blacker, who at the time had just sold the Natural Fibre Company. And so,
which is a Cornish company, isn't it?
Exactly, in Cornwall. And she was superb. We explained what we wanted to do, and she told us how important, or the characteristics of different fleeces, and the importance of selecting the right blend. We were very clear that we wanted a soft blended wool. One, to get over the fact that, British wool sometimes had this perception of being very itchy, and we wanted to not have an itchy one, but also to get over that perception and maybe compete a bit with merino. So she explained the importance of getting the right blend, and also the spinning specifications. So we had quite an introduction to wool, didn't we?
We did.
Through Sue, and she's really responsible for helping us create our first blend, which was the Shetland and Blueface Leicester. We thought the wool business and the wine business had great similarities in that the raw material is very heavily influenced. So the fleece and the grapes are influenced by their location, by the environment, the weather, and it's a time-intensive production process. And it goes back many, many years. So we thought that the analogy was quite appropriate, and that wine drinkers have a lot of information on their wine bottle, and they tend to know which grapes in it. And before they've actually opened it or tasted it, they know an awful lot about the wine. And we thought, why not do the same with wool?
And the name Wool Decanted, we created that name purely to help knitters and crocheters celebrate the provenance of the yarn, so you know exactly where it comes from. And everything that we create has been modelled on a wine label, so you can see there. It looks pretty similar to a wine label from the front, and at the back we always give all the sourcing of the information of where the fleeces are from, where it's actually been milled, and where it's been dyed as well.
And a lot of your marketing, because I've seen you on a stand, and after this I'll get some images potentially of your stand setup, because I think that would be nice to put in the video to show people. But you actually set up your stall, don't you, as if it was a wine business. It's sort of in wine crates and things.
We think we've got that quite right now, because we are actually using a proper wine store display unit with the crates and filled with wool instead of wine. And we use the big display blackboard, so it's very much like stepping into your local wine shop.
And we've got vine leaves, haven't we, over the shop?
It feels like a wine cellar, I think. When you,
and we've used also wording, the tasting notes, and we're naming each of our blends by the year that it was created, like a wine. So vintage 20, 21, 22, 23.
And each blend is slightly different, isn't it?
Yes.
So how has that evolved? In terms of why is that? Is it just because of availability of the fibre, or you wanted to change the mix, or what?
I think we were sort of experimenting with the mix. So Vintage 20, which is the very first blend, this is a combination of Blueface Leicester and Shetland, and it's been worsted spun in Cornwall. You can see the colour, this is the natural base, but you can see it's quite a fawn colour. So we really, really love the feel of Vintage 20. We wanted to experiment with other blends. So Vintage 21, this is slightly different, this one. This again is in natural. This particular yarn, we actually bought the fleeces directly from a farm in Northumberland, and it actually was a Polwarth Romney sheep, crossbred sheep.
So that's strictly speaking not a blend.
Not a blend, but it's still, yeah,
it's a mix of two different sheep.
And that allowed us really to look at the different softness of the blends and to actually feel them. And they do feel slightly different actually when you do actually touch them up close. And then Vintage 22 is almost like the black sheep of the family.
No, it's not.
Well, we were experimenting with, this is organic Shetland from the island of Fetlar. But the reason why this one won't be repeated was unfortunately the fleeces had rued, which means we actually created a slubby yarn. So it's an experiment.
It was an experiment.
The Vintage 22.
Yeah. It was good. I mean, we learned a lot. It's actually quite lovely wool to knit with, but it's not quite the soft wool that we have been creating previously.
And then I think Vintage...
and when...
Sorry, Jim.
Go on. Yeah, finish that, and then I'll come back and ask a question about that.
Mm-hmm. And then Vintage 23.
Vintage 23.
Which is our latest blend. This is our absolute favourite so far. So we took the learnings from the previous blend into Vintage 23. This is a combination of Polwarth, Romney, and then we added a little bit of black Shetland, which has given this lovely, I would describe it as a light grey base, but also works really, really well when it's dyed. It gives this lovely heathery undertone to it.
With the Vintage 22, which you sort of, I can't remember what you called it, your rogue one or whatever you called it. Do you just get like a small sample made up so that you can test it and then decide whether, because obviously producing that and getting that milled is an expensive process for the business. So how do you decide whether, what's the process for you deciding to extend your production?
With this particular blend, the minimum weight from a mill normally is around 20 kilos of raw fleeces to get it processed. So we went in with that minimal order. Why it became even more complex is when we got the fleeces from the farmer from Fetlar, he was very kind and he decided to give us a range of different coloured fleeces. So we had 20 kilograms, but in 5 different colours, which meant that we had to pay the natural fibre company because we were below their minimum weight. And we went to a lovely mill actually in Devon who actually processed the individual fleeces for us. So this Vintage 22 was a tiny batch. I think the net result coming out of it was probably around 7 kilos in weight. And we've sold out of all of the natural colours, and we just have this this one left. You're absolutely right, Jane. So we experiment with minimal weights. And then we see, from a customer base, how well they sell. And it's from that selling out that we then decide whether we're going to produce a greater volume of the yarn.
So you mentioned colours. So let's talk colours, because when I met you, you had a small limited colour palette, didn't you? Do you want to have you got colours there with you?
Yes.
Do you want to show us what colours you started with and what the thinking was behind that?
Original colours, that's not original.
Okay. So we have got 9. It's still a small palette.
5 original colours.
The 5 original colours were this navy, which we call Midnight Lagoon, and
I love that colour. The lovely navy.
And this is an orangey red, Shepherd's Delight. And then I love Lazy Hazy.
I do too.
Yes. Storm was another original, nice dark grey, charcoal. And River Time.
Yeah, that's a lovely green.
Yeah.
And then we have the natural, which now is the lovely heathery grey. And
So
then,
why did you decide on those colours to start with? What was your thought process behind those? Can you remember?
Yes, I remember very clearly. Because we were renting what we felt was a very competitive wool business. One of the reasons why we decided to actually create blends was to recognise the fantastic work that single breed producers are doing in creating yarn. When it came to colour, we felt very strongly that we needed to create something of differentiation. So our strategy has always been about creating colours that pop. So they're really strong, solid, I would say earthy colours, but also work really, really well together. So our favourite colour combinations, really, these two colours are beautiful. You see they work. I mean,
Yeah.
camera is showing.
Yeah.
But the latest colours we've got.
well, we've added 3 new colours with Vintage 23, which is this claret.
It's lovely.
It's a lovely
Deep aubergine
Yeah,
colour.
the lovely and so well named.
yes.
At last.
And this one, the pinky one, Island Dusk. And then
That's good. But they're all good.
Another one I love is the bottle green.
It's almost like
It's
a school green, isn't it?
Yes.
School uniform.
Yes.
Bottle green.
Yeah, no, I school knickers makes me
Yeah.
think,
Yes.
sorry.